ain't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Eevee and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie, the Blerd Without Fear. Welcome back to the channel. Today we have a special guest, someone, if you've been keeping on my channel for a while, we've actually had on before, Declan Shalvey, who some of you may know because we've been talking about Thundercats. We've been talking about that a lot lately, and of course the upcoming Mystique. And if you're not familiar, you should be. The series Old Dog and Time Before Time, and just a lot of stuff. You've been all over the place lately.
Yeah.
I feel.
As you say that, I get more tired.
Yeah. Well, I will say, look, hey, if nothing else, I am happy for you because I was like, man, I'm seeing Declan's name everywhere now. I was like, I love to see it.
It's just me yelling it over and over and over again. Oops, sorry.
Oh no, you're okay.
Yeah, no, I am like just doing so much stuff at the moment. But to be fair, Old Dog at the moment is an anthology, which is something I'll be able to kind of do on the side. Mystique has been kind of what I've been on the most. Thundercats would be the next thing because that's been so much. So much of that has been done in the last year. And Terminator now is a newer thing, but they all kind of lead into each other nicely. And Time Before Time is volume 6 of single issues that we did over the course of the series. So it's all a lot of like big jobs with a lot of smaller jobs kind of, pouring in the side. But now that I think volume 6, Time Before Time will be out and the anthology will be, I'm actually doing all the design work this week. So hopefully it'll just be writing 3 books and drawing one of them.
Well, yeah, because I was about to say, because you often do the variant covers too, so
and covers to all those books too. Yeah, I'm doing the A covers for Mystique and Terminator as well, and I think it's the C covers for Thundercats. So yeah, so I do covers for all the books I'm writing as well. So it's 3 covers a month. On top of everything else. Yeah. Well, it's a good thing I don't have a life.
Well, I was gonna ask, how do you find the time? like how did you just like chain yourself down to the desk?
Yeah, I mean, you just squeeze as much blood out of an apple as you possibly can. I know. I mean, some of it is definitely just like planning as much as you can. But like, say, trying to think of an example. Like I'm also I think out in September as well is you see the dog there.
Oh yeah.
Oh. Hey, yeah. And it's like an adorable little Muppet just popped out of the screen. Out of focus. Yeah, actually number 10 that I'm puppeteering the hello. Anyway. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm derailing.
You're good. No, you're good. You're good.
But I think I've also kind of I've co-created a new Moon Knight for a storyline at Marvel, and that was written and done. But then I'm trying to say color a story for Old Dog, write an issue of Thundercats, and that's my plan for the evening. But then I need like to do color notes on the Marvel story. So the problem is, no matter how much you plan, something else kind of comes in to derail you a bit. And that can be pretty frustrating. It all needs to be done. Like it often happens. Like Thundercats is going to print tomorrow, and we need your notes on the lettering now. And I'm like trying to finish a panel of Mystique, things like that. It's tough because even no matter how well you plan things, stuff drops in your lap, so you have to kind of be able to pivot. And pivoting is what slows me down too. So that's the tough thing is trying to maintain momentum on the various projects. The reason I mean, it's great to have so many different projects though. So that's the downside of being able to do so much fun stuff. Every one of those projects is really cool. If I could just be doing this Moon Knight thing, that'd be cool. If I could just be doing Thundercats, that would be cool. So I get to have it all,
Well, I think it's a testament to how well you're able to juggle all that.
I guess it's my natural state is making things. So when I'm doing nothing, I'm generally getting something done.
Well, I could definitely say the thing like of all the things that I could have imagined you doing, the thing that I didn't like I don't know, for whatever reason, just was not like on my radar until like it was announced, was Terminator. And like that's a franchise is very like near and dear to my heart. I was actually joking with my wife just the other day because as I was actually prepping for this interview, I walked in the other room and she was watching Terminator Judgment Day, like apropos of nothing. But it was just one of those things. Like it's a thing that you can constantly be found going on in the house at some point or another. Like,
Oh man, anytime it pops on, if it's on TV or something, like I just sit down and watch it.
yeah.
It's incredible. Like it's a masterpiece.
Mm. Oh yeah, it's a great franchise, and it man, what's 40 years now, I think, as of this year, like yeah, and going strong. And there's been like comic adaptations and stuff like that before, but what's going to be going on now? This is actually, I think this is going to be, I think the first Terminator comic in a while.
I think so.
And
Actually, I don't know when the last one was. The last one I
it's
remember was RoboCop versus Terminator, and that was
oh man,
was because two of my friends were doing it. It was PJ Holden,
Mm,
who did some of Time Before Time,
yeah.
and actually a story in Old Dog, but he was drawing it, and Rob Williams was writing it.
Mm.
But that's the only reason I remember, and that was I
And
was
I
working 20 Days Later at the time, so you're
yeah,
talking 18 years ago, maybe
yeah.
16 years ago. No,
that
but there might be one since. I'm not sure.
that sounds honestly about right though. So, but like, how did I mean? You know, what attracted you to the to this particular project? Like how did it all get set up?
Well, I was actually at the Dynamite offices because I was doing a little bit of a tour to promote Thundercats, and Nick Barucci suggested it, or Nate Cosby, the editor, told me that Nick School was going to offer me something, and we were doing a lot of Thundercat stuff, and have more Thundercat stuff planned, and I thought it was going to be related to that. So I was like, oh, all right. But yeah, it's a Terminator. I was like, huh? And kind of like you start thinking, when was the last? Like, well, one is that your brain goes, would that be cool to do? And it's like yes, but then you start like thinking, well, wait, would it do well? When's the last one that was out? Who was
Mhm.
on it? Did anybody care?
Yeah.
Um, but then you can just go back to like, well, what is it? Because
Mm.
Terminator comic could be a lot of different things. And I just knew what I didn't want it to be. I didn't want it to be like a a kind of run-of-the-mill licensed book, which can, I mean, I'm not saying anything about any previous Terminator book, but licensed books in general can end
Mhm.
up just being very kind of run-of-the-mill looking books, if you're not careful. So
Mhm.
my thing was like, could I do a cool one? I was like, well, if pick the artist, I think I could. I could definitely write something that I would find interesting, but like, would I get an artist that would like kind of you know um inspire me more? But also, what helped was that I talked to Nate Cosby about it, and there's continuity, specifically the first film. So
Okay.
what I said, I love Terminator 2, which I do. It's a masterpiece. I was like, it could only deal with the continuity established in the first film. And at first you're like going, oh no, well I can't do X, Y, and Z. And then I went back and I rewatched the first film. I realized like there's a reason why Terminator 2 is so good, is because the ground level lore is so like tight and interesting. And you
Mhm.
actually can do so much with that. And also, I do like limitations at times, because sometimes you can kind of go nuts with stuff if you're not careful. So I found once me and Nate talked about it, and like we realized the approach I would like would be a more grounded thriller. I mean, you know, Terminator is basically a woman being chased by a man.
For about an
A
hour and a
scary
half
man,
almost.
for an hour and a half. Now, it happens that he's a robot, but like there's only really snippets of that through the film until the
Mhm.
end. Like it's just basically an unstoppable, terrifying, you know, mysterious man is coming to kill this woman no matter what, and is getting everything he can to. Nothing's going to stop him, and it's a brilliant thriller with, of course, sci-fi tones, but the sci-fi is kind of the back. Like, I think it's more in the forefront in Terminator 2, which is one of the reasons why I love it. But
Mhm.
I really appreciated how much of a grounded, pulpy noir, thriller that the first one is.
Mhm.
And I'm like, and I found that core story. I'm like, I could totally do a comic like that every month, you know. And the idea, me and they were talking, is that it's a new scenario every issue, so it's not. Because I
Okay.
think a lot of the questions, you know, that are coming my way is like, is this going to be about this and X, Y, and Z? And my approach is like, leave all of that aside.
Mhm.
Not to sound bad, but like the obvious thing would just be to go and do a Sarah Connor and you know, like those, that stuff's been milked, I think,
Mhm.
you know, not that you can't do anything good with it, but for the purposes of a monthly comic book, I thought it would be more interesting to have the Terminator in a different place pretty much every issue,
Okay.
where the story is about survival, not about like those specific characters, which is kind of harder because it means I need to introduce characters you're going to care about. But you
Mhm.
know, the book's called The Terminator, and that's what it is, you know. So that's the approach, basically done in one, um, or with a couple of two-parters for
Mhm.
bigger stories, um, where yeah, basically this monster, this creature, for lack of a better word, this like killing machine, quite literally, is coming to kill you, and you have to try and survive, and you may not.
I
That was the
like
one
yeah.
thing. I said to Nate, it's like sometimes the Terminator wins,
Mhm.
you know, and you can do that in a monthly, you know, that can't really be the end of your Terminator film. But I
Mhm.
think if you're going to do episodic stories, then you know the hero can't always win. So that was
Right.
I wanted to do something like Thundercats is, you know, it's moody, but it's like action, you know, hero storytelling. Terminator, to be honest, is actually more down my street. You know, like I wrote
Mhm.
Alien last year for Marvel, and you
Right.
know the stuff I do with Old Dog. Like it's more kind of suits my um moody uh what's the word I'm looking for? Tendencies.
Mhm. Oh, I like the idea of this because that was actually something that because I when I didn't really look too terribly deep into it, but like when I was looking at the press release, it was talking about, you know, going like across time and, you know, hitting up different points and things like that. So that was the thing I was curious about, is like if it was gonna like introduce anything, like any kind of a new element, and like the idea of, yeah, staying away from Sarah Connor, you know, John Connor, you know, the characters we've already seen, you know, it's all been done, you know, to some degree or another. So yeah, going with new characters, I think that's like, honestly, I think that's kind of where the the Terminator comics I've read in the past have always shined, is you're trying to, you know, go somewhere else. One thing I was curious about too is, because this is something that like we don't really see a whole heap of a lot of, you know, maybe like in the books and stuff like that, or you know, like novelizations and things of that nature. I think maybe a couple of comics have kind of touched on this, but like the movies never really do. Like like have would there be any like chance that we might see some kind of like the inner workings of like Skynet, or like like the Terminator obviously is a titular character, but you know, obviously also not the hero. So like, do we get any like I guess inside the pathos of a of a cold hard killing machine?
Oh, I would say, yeah, for me, my tendency is to avoid that as much as possible,
Hmm.
because once you pull that cord, it's very hard to unpull it.
Hmm.
So, um, there is some, I would say, I would get more into the lore in the second arc. The first
Hmm.
arc is very much going to be the different scenarios.
Hmm.
And they are linked. There is a link. There is a narrative link to some degree that won't be immediately apparent, but as the series
Hmm.
goes, I think the reader will see that it is interconnected somehow. So you know, we will see the war against machines at some stage, and we will see some kind of more Skynet things. But I think that stuff needs to be earned
Hmm.
um, by the reader. It would be very easy to just go right in and do that stuff, and it would be fine and it would be entertaining. But I don't think it would leave the book a lot of room for the book to go.
Hmm.
So, yeah, that's going to come more in the second arc. So
Hmm.
make sure you get by the first issues, so that the book will do well enough for us to get to the second arc. I'd like to say that was my plan, but no, um, I believe in delayed gratification when it comes to
Hmm.
storytelling. And yeah, once you do the cool thing, then I think it doesn't give the reader a lot of place to go. And like I said, I think there's
Mhm.
so much scope with this franchise that I'm more interested in going to those places and then kind of building to
Mhm.
where the readers really want to see that stuff. If
And
that
you
makes
said
sense.
like you're going to be keeping more like in the kind of in the time frame of the first movie. So
Hmm.
so like 80s is a pretty wild time. And it was kind of more of a, I guess, by nowadays standards and Terminator movies, like you're dealing with like a more I guess kind of a low tech, comparatively speaking, Terminator. So like you were talking about like limitations and stuff like that, like because presumably, I'm gonna assume a lot of things here. You're probably not gonna be diving too terribly deep into like some of the crazier Terminators that we have seen in the past. I think was it 3 or 4 movies, I think, by this point. What kind of Terminator? What kind of Terminator can we expect? Like,
Oh, well, I would say pretty much just the T-800 because like
mm,
we're as regards the license, it's specifically
mm,
um the T-800. Now that doesn't mean we can't see other stuff, but
mm,
like say, the boring answer is we can't use T-1000 or anything like that. Anything that's in
yeah,
the movies afterwards, we can't go near. So
mm,
again, that's why also again I like the limitation because that means the T-800 is the scariest fucking thing you can deal with, which is exactly
yeah,
what it is. But that's not to say we can't do stuff of our own. So
okay,
I'll leave it there if that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I
no.
would I would say yeah I would because yeah don't expect
No.
anything that you've seen before because we literally can't do it.
Yeah.
But again I don't really mind that stuff because it
Mhm,
again like say with Thundercats we were able to do a hell of a lot, loads of
mhm.
stuff. I mean, the stuff that's coming. I mean, you're not going to believe.
Oh wow.
Like, um, yeah, what's coming, what we're working on right now is nuts. I wouldn't have thought we could get away with that stuff, but we are. I think we're a little bit more limited with Terminator, but again, I think that just for me keeps the focus on. I don't need to see 600 models of different Terminators.
Yeah.
Not when the first one is perfect.
Mhm.
And there's so much to be done with it. So, yeah, again, I feel bad sometimes when people asking questions because I think they want it to go one way, and I keep like shutting them down, going like, nope, none of that.
I'm fine.
Um,
I'm fine with it. I like the T-800. That I think that's kind of. I honestly don't think you really need much more than that. Uh.
Same. I would like a different version that's easier to draw because
Well, yeah.
I don't know, like who I haven't mentioned yet, Luke Sparrow is the artist, and like he's like it looks so good, and he's doing it panel by panel, whereas I'm just doing it on a cover, and it's pain in the arse to draw. But I mean, it looks
Oh.
so cool when you get it right. It looks so cool. But so yeah, if I could do something, I would like. I think I was joking somewhere else. If the T-1000 would be so much easier to draw, but we are where we are.
Well, I mean, and that's something I'm curious about too, because I know in the past, because that was always something that I remember when I was like a kid reading Terminator comics, and that would always be like the first thing I would notice is that like, oh, the Terminator looks different. Like, yeah, because like it's all that design is so intricate. There's so many like, I mean, yeah, you have like some of the bulkier pieces where like it's not as much, but like the more I think about it, like as a kid, I was always so disappointed. But like as I got older and like you learn more about like detailing in art, and I was like, oh wow, yeah, you don't want to draw that like you know a bajillion panels every issue. So like that was what I was curious about. Is like man, what like how for a
Sorry, no.
cover? How long does it take you to draw the Terminator and all that detail?
Uh, it's a tough one. Yeah, like I did the cover for issue one was
Mm,
I was trying to do something nice and direct. Just the head with the eyes peering out. I'm like, that's gonna be a really cool, moody cover. And it ended up taking way, way longer because when it's hard to get it right because it's
mm,
not it's not just a human skull. It's it's thin, and then the curves you need to get right. But then also you can't just black. I mean, I was trying to go black out a lot of shadow to make it moody, but then you realize like it's the Terminator, so it's gonna be reflections. So I spent
Hmm.
so long doing all the reflections on the face, and I'm like, okay, well, that took longer than I thought. And then the second cover is a full body shot I did. And in my layouts, I blacked out a lot of it because there's an explosion in the background. But
Hmm.
then when I'm drawing it, I'm like, well, I gotta get all the detail in there. So that took ages. So they actually take a good while, and probably a couple of days, and the colors as well take a while. So no, you're
Oh
talking
man.
two full days, I'd say. But look, it's also fun. Like, I
Mm.
mean, I drew Terminators when I was a kid in my school copies, and they were terrible because you didn't have all the reference. Now thankfully
Right.
there's
Yeah.
things like 3D models that can be a lot of help because
Hmm.
you don't end up like just redrawing the same photo, like, because you do get photo reference sent to you, so like you don't want to
Hmm.
keep drawing the same reference over and over again because the reader's going to notice that. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's trying to find like a pose or an angle that hasn't been seen before is pretty tough, and then the rendering, and then you go like, oh wait, there's a thing here that connects to the jaw and that goes in there, and where does that cable lead? So it's weirdly, when you see the comics then it looks great, but then when you really look at it, you're like, man, it is tough to draw, especially like the collarbones here, and there's a yoke.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, yeah,
There's
it's
the
in your
chest
mind.
piece that like go like for the rib cage. It's like a
Yeah, it's specifically curved, and it hooks it like, so it's so like when you look at it, you're like, man, that'd be cool to draw, but then when you really look, you're like, oh God, this is really hard.
well, it's just one of those things that like yeah, as the more I thought about it, I was just like, yeah, I don't envy anyone the task of trying to keep a schedule and draw that. I know I would not be able to. Uh but
Yeah, I mean, you think it's going to be, yeah, you think it's going to be fun and easy, and it's
mhm,
actually very hard
yeah.
and very hard. But you stick with it, you do come up. I mean, like that cover was really tough
Mhm.
for issue 2, but I'm really happy with it now. So it's
Mhm.
like some things just are hard. Look, some things are just hard to bloody draw, and you just have to get on with it.
Yeah. Well, and this is something I'm interested in too
It's,
because
it's not easier. It's not easier to write Terminator than it is to draw it.
the drop. Yeah, I was gonna
Terminator's
say.
what, 9 letters?
Yeah. Well, now this is part I'm curious. Yeah, because you're talking about difficulty because like you go back to Terminator, like the first movie it's very one sided just in terms of what the antagonist is able to do versus what the protagonist is capable of. So like so there's that fear factor is just like rampant because you're like, okay, it's regular, literally regular man, regular woman versus advanced killing machine. And so like also like I know you said like each story is supposed to be it's one particular hero and then the Terminator. Is it always going to be the same Terminator, or will it be like, or maybe will it be like a different one each time, or?
Yeah, I would say it's different each time.
Hmm.
Maybe not every time, but in general, yeah. Like I would say that
Hmm.
so, yeah, I'm trying to think what I can say without giving anything away. Um, yeah, it's the same model but different
Okay.
Terminators. So,
Mhm.
they may not just they may achieve their goal, but they may not survive it necessarily. They may survive and shut down and have to hide. Like, I mean, it's once, I mean, yeah, the model is the model, which is
Hmm.
scary, but it doesn't mean it's the same one each time, and just
Hmm.
because one's destroyed doesn't mean there isn't another one around the corner.
Right. And like trying to maintain that balancing act of I guess maintaining that tension between like having this machine like literally hunting down whichever protagonist the issue is dealing with, like because I know you already have like some experience with this, especially with having done Alien. But like, what is that? Yeah, like I guess what are your best practices when it comes to like trying to tell a story like that where there's supposed to be like a fear factor involved?
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, shadows are great.
Hmm.
And well, also, like, I think for me, I was talking to Luke about this when we were starting, was for me, the Terminator isn't the T1, the T8, T-800, sorry, necessarily. It's the scene where Reese is in his base, and people come into the base and the dogs start barking, and then they realize one of them's a Terminator, and it's not Arnie, because this is the thing, we also can't use Arnie's likeness. It's some guy who gets a gun and starts wiping everyone out, and then like the shadows come and you can see those eyes peering out. I'm like, that's the book. It doesn't need to be about specific characters. It doesn't need to be about any likenesses. It's actually the scary thing to a degree is who is the Terminator? Like, now I would say issue 1, it's very clear who the Terminator is. But like that's not to say in other issues you don't necessarily do know who the Terminator is. So it's not just that there's a big robot walking through the book. There's also kind of the potential for a lot of kind of mystery stories, or whodunits, or that type of stuff. Because ultimately the scary thing about the Terminator is that you don't know who or what it is or where it is, because it looks like a human. I think that's something to play around with too. I would say with the first issue, we're in 2 different times in which we don't see the robot and we do see the robot. Again, I don't want to give too much away. And that was a really fun thing to do, is basically show a Terminator robot in 2 different times within the same story was a fun thing to do. So again, like having you have 20 pages to tell a limited story, and it's like, what can you do that's kind of fun and different, like not repeat the same, like the way we do issue 1 is not how I will do issue 2 or 3 or what have you. Maybe you don't see the robot in one of the issues. Maybe you never see the human version. Like, again, playing with the specific limitations of what you have can actually breed more kind of interesting ideas. Also, frankly, it was the same with Alien. The first issue of Alien, the alien just shows up at the end, and we had 30 pages for that. I remember thinking like that's going to really piss people off, but once you pull the cord and you show the xenomorph, then that's kind of it. The fear factor is dissipates to a degree. So a lot of it is constructing fear and making sure that when that moment is released, that it's a really satisfying moment for the audience. Like we're doing something in issue 1. I was talking to Luke, and he's like, will I show a bit of the robot here? I'm like, no. Let's save the reveal for this page. Even though it says Terminator on the cover, we know what it is. Yeah. But I think the reader, if it's just page 1 and it's nothing but the robot, I think you lose something. So it's about giving the reader enough, but not enough, and then giving them what they want at the right time. It's like it is what is funny or cool about storytelling is trying to arrange those bells and whistles so that like you're giving the audience what it wants without it realizing. It's like if I told you everything what it was and you'd read it, you're like, okay, that's fine. Or if you told me what you want and I wrote to that, there's no surprises. So it's a fine line of like giving you what you want, but then like denying it to you so that when it happens, it's satisfying.
Well, I think that's actually that's a very good way to go about it, because I think that's something
I think I joked once that storytelling is like mentally abusing the reader.
Yeah.
I stand by that.
Well, because you can't just give away the whole store like in the first, and that's something I try to explain to a lot of my audience sometimes, because sometimes like you pick any random book, but it's like, oh, why haven't they done this yet, or why did they do this? It's like, well, it may be frustrating, but at the same time, it's a good kind of frustrating, because you can't, like, especially, let's just say for the sake of argument, you got a story that's like 12 issues long. If you answer all the questions in issue 1, there's no reason to buy the next 11. Like if everything, unless you were just that damn good, but the thing is, most people, they want the thing, but they don't really realize exactly when and in what order they do want it.
Yeah, it's like they want the reader, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way. I mean on the very same. We all want dessert. But
right.
Dessert doesn't mean anything unless we've had our dinner first.
Right.
And I think that's my job, is to like give you the dinner you need,
Mhm.
and then you deserve the dessert, you know? If it was all just dessert, it would all be useless candy that none of us are
Mhm.
like, in the same way, and like I can answer every question you ask me and tell you everything about the issue, but then
Yeah.
well, you wouldn't have read the issue.
Mhm.
And what's more interesting, me telling you about what happens in it, or you actually reading the thing? And
Exactly.
so there's, and like, look, I could tell you, but like, it won't be as good as like the deliberately paced and beautifully illustrated and
Mhm.
curated, like it's the difference between, do you want to watch a film or do you want to read the Wikipedia article? And
Right.
I think fans, we have the urge to read the Wikipedia article.
Mhm.
We do. I mean,
Mhm.
it would be silly to say that we don't. But I don't think anyone ever goes like, that was the right call. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, no, I'm glad I didn't, unless it's bad, of course, that's a
Yeah.
whole other story, you know. Um, but I don't think this book is
Yeah.
bad. I think it's good.
No.
Um, and I think that's the fine line between like, fandom. Like, say, I don't have this problem with Old Dog necessarily because nobody
Mhm.
knows what it is, or
Mhm.
Time Before Time. But then once you move into the territory of like things, something like Mystique or Thundercats or known
Yeah.
properties, they are coming to it with a. It's different because they're coming to it with an idea of what it is
Mhm.
and also what they want it to be. But like, you know, with things like Alien and Terminator, you know, like we're at a stage with a lot of franchises where there's more bad versions of them than good.
Mhm. That's yeah.
That does not mean, but like there's a lot of classic franchises where had they just done two films, they would have been amazing, but then they decided to do more and they weren't good. Um, so you have to be careful with this stuff, and just because you want a thing doesn't mean you'll actually be happy once you get it.
Mhm.
So I guess we're getting into the weeds of like,
Mhm.
being a creator or whatnot, but I think there's something to that. It's like I know you want it, but
Mhm.
like if I just give it to you now, you're gonna walk away like you would have done nothing to earn it, therefore won't be as
Mhm.
satisfying. So I mean, that's the dark alchemy from my point of view is like how could I ultimately make this something that you're going to really enjoy by me torturing you for, you know, 12 pages.
And I think that's actually the kind of difficult job too, because it's something I had to explain to my kid not too long ago because she's recently gotten into wanting to watch horror movies,
Hmm.
and I had to explain to her. I was like, because she would say, "Oh, this part right here is boring," and I'm like, "Well, I was like, it's because you're having this is a story." I was like, we're having you have a mission statement to, especially with each issue having a different protagonist. You have to get us to care about that protagonist. So like,
Which is hard.
no, it's difficult, especially in
I could
something
just
like
write Sarah
this.
Connor in there, and you all know Sarah Connor is, care
Yeah,
about her. That would be easy.
yeah.
That's not that's I can, I mean,
You can get
those are
right to
the
the
positive
Terminator.
things. Yeah, but like, I mean, I guess it's a whole other argument. But I think I was listening to something about a thing on YouTube about like music and how when you were a kid you'd have to like work a job to save money in order to go to a place and buy a single or whatever, and
Hmm.
so that like the level of gratification from what it took to get it was huge. And now I could just name anything, I can just have it up, and while that is amazing, there's something to be said for um kind of the flattening of art and culture. And
Hmm.
sorry, I know we're talking about Terminator here, like
Yeah,
so the murder robot,
yeah.
no, but just like no, because I want to tell. I think the original Terminator is a story about the human condition and the fight to never give in and love. That's not what you would necessarily say. That's what Terminator story is, but I think that is what the core of that. That's why it matters. It's why those characters you actually care about them. So it's like, the Terminator is a device to kind of present those type of things, and that's what I'm hoping to do. It's generally, I mean, what I try to do. Like even with Alien as well, I was trying to tell a very soulful story about sacrifice and family and stuff like that. And I think that's what these like I was joking before, like the Alien wasn't about Mr. Alien.
Right.
It's a tool for deeper stories, and Terminator is that too. And I think that's probably why a lot of the franchises from the 80s are like that. I think maybe that's where we were culture-wise at the time. Um, so there's the surface level of this cool murder robot, which is
Mm.
cool, but like that's not what the story is. So
Mhm.
that's my challenge every month is how do I tell a story that like is gonna like make you feel something, um, good or bad, using this amazing like device.
Now, like,
Sorry if I get into the weeds too much with this
no, no,
stuff.
no. You're good.
I
The
clearly
weed.
can't talk about so much stuff, so I'm gonna make up other shit.
You're good. You're good. Well, no, the weeds is where I live. But no, one of the things I often find that is very kind of funny about the overall franchise is and it seems like you may or may not be you're possibly tackling this is like it's always one of the most common things people say is like, oh, why didn't they, okay, well the first robot got wrecked, all right, well, why didn't they just send another one? Or why did they just do this one? Why did they just send that one? They could literally send another one right now.
I will say that's kind of the premise of the book.
Yeah, that's what it kind of feels like.
Yeah. They are also, yeah, that's it. Is they are saying, but just because you didn't see it doesn't mean it didn't happen. So
Right.
maybe the argument is you're seeing it happen here.
Yeah, and that's I thought that was cause there's you were talking earlier about like how there's so much lore that it's fertile ground to just come up with all kinds of stories. So, and that was one of the things I thought was really cool, like because there was little stuff that's mentioned in the first movie that I think, I guess technically just because of the passage of time, sometimes it's been like delved to like how the original, or not original, but like one of the earlier models of the Terminator, like they didn't even look human, like they looked,
Yeah, actually,
they had skin, but it was more plastic, so you could tell a lot quicker that they.
I want to do that. I want to do that story. Like that's the T600. I want to.
Yeah.
I think one of the pitches I had tonight was like, what if one of them comes back and it's just totally fucking useless, you know? Like that's not a great Terminator film, but I think it could be a really good Terminator like issue.
Yeah.
So like that's I have to play around with the order of where I'm going with it, but like yeah, that's definitely an issue I want to do is the disastrous mission of the T600.
Well, and then like that and just man, there's a lot to work with like in all that, and I think not dealing with like Sarah Connor, John Connor, Kyle Reese, or anybody like that, like I think the idea of like opening it up to just more, I guess like other types of characters, like, cause well, I mean, early Sarah Connor is just kind of more just regular, everyday, average person, but like, and then eventually grows to become like, the iconic, shotgun, wielding, badass that I think, we know her more as today. But like, what kind of human characters like or like is it going to be something kind of more along those lines of like early days, just kind of regular person just kind of caught in the middle, or like are we looking at like resistance fighters?
Okay, I'll say this with the first issue is the first issue deals with an elderly couple who got away,
Oh.
but time's caught up with them.
Oh.
Okay, so the first it's an elderly couple in the first issue where a Terminator shows up on their door. So do you think they have much chance?
No.
But so imagine that like you're a frail old man and the Terminator comes, like you're not going to punch it in the face, like that. I think that's inherently more scary than an action hero, like again, there's moments and I don't want to give away, but like if that old man shoots a gun at the Terminator, I think it's going to go the same way as Kyle Reese doing it.
Right.
But I think that's inherently more scary and terrifying, and like, I'll say it because the solicitations will be out in the next week anyway, and the second issue is in Vietnam.
Okay. So like
imagine,
really jumping like around, like not just in the 80s then.
Not just in the 80s, no. I mean, I would say it's within the lifetime of I guess Sarah Connor maybe, or because it will go to the future as well, just not so much. Again, like that temptation is, this is the problem, is my temptation was go to the future. I'm like,
yeah,
that's where you want to go, but you need to earn that. So
right.
I do have a plan, but also this elderly couple, it isn't the elderly couple. It's set like 10 years ago
Mm,
in 2010. So it's after the War of the Machines with
okay.
an elderly couple. I can say this because it'll probably be in the previews. It's an elderly couple who survived, but a Terminator hunts them down. So
Oh wow.
it's not primarily set in the 80s at all. It's actually
Mm,
set in the past, but as in like 10 years ago, like in the
right.
timeline. And the second one goes to the 70s. So like,
Okay.
it's all within, I guess, 70 years.
Mm.
Like I'm not planning on going to the Civil War era or anything like that, but within, but still, imagine a Viet Cong village, and all of a sudden, Terminator walks in there like that. I just remember thinking like that would be cool. Um,
Yeah.
what's a Terminator going to do with a tank in the Vietnam War? Like that's cool. So it's fun stuff like that.
You've actually got my wheels turning because now I'm sitting here thinking about it and I'm itemizing it all in my head. I'm like, yeah, you know what? We've actually never like you think about a lot of like the big franchises of the like 80s and 90s, and like everyone kind of eventually goes somewhere. Like there's all these different like locales you usually hit, but Terminator is usually always like concrete jungle type of deal. Like you're in the city, so like the idea of a Terminator like walking through the jungles of, of Vietnam, like how like and just kind of knowing the landscape of how that worked, the traps and and mechanisms that were typically like lying in wait. It actually
Mm.
makes for a pretty like interesting. Like I would love to see like more stuff like that. That right there is like definitely like a selling point to me, is like seeing the Terminator in situations that I otherwise would not have seen.
Yeah, that's the goal with it. Like, I mean, because I got one thing, because I draw to, for me, it's like what's going to look like
Mhm.
cool imagery. Like again, that robot is great, but like the cover for issue 2 was like my idea for the story. I'm like, I have not. What the hell is that going to look like? And I drew it, and I'm like, it looks fucking cool. Mission accomplished. Now I just need to write it.
Yeah.
But like that kind of thing. I want like I want the book to be like a beautifully drawn, which it already is, because Luke stuff is, like you said, a new page this morning, and it looks fantastic. Even just normal boring stuff, he makes it look like sublime. Um, uh, I want it to be a book that like looks better than any licensed book you could expect, with like something to surprise the reader each time. I want to make a licensed book that feels like a creator-owned book, if that makes sense.
I like that mindset too, because you said something earlier that kind of struck a chord with me. Is that like and I feel like a lot of that's changed as of late. But like I remember as a kid, like growing up with comics, like if you got like a licensed book, it was usually it was hit or miss a lot of the time, just depending on what was going on at the time. Like there were some that were great, there were some that weren't so great. I can't tell you any number of random movie tie-in comics I'd read that were just kind of like a thing. And nothing more than that. But I like the idea of what you're bringing to this, because it's like I can only imagine just how much goes in to working on something that's like such an iconic property. But at the same time, like something you said earlier about as an artist, like you kind of already have it visualized in your head, like what it's going to look like, how cool it can potentially look. So like I feel like it, especially having as much knowledge as you do like on the subject matter, like man, you have me excited to check it out. Like I was already excited for it, but like I like the idea of just trying to do something absolutely positively not the stock standard. We're not trying to do Terminator 2, 3, Sarah Connor Chronicles,
Exactly.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like and but also at the same time, we're also not trying to recreate, not trying to reheat the leftovers of Terminator 1.
Yeah. But
So
I
yeah.
mean, and I appreciate that, because I'm not sure where the disconnect is between, I don't know, maybe it's the promotion and the press and
Mhm.
what what's being said as opposed to what people want to see. So I think, I think I was doing somebody was asking me some press questions. I'm like, I'm not sure if you've read what the book's about. It just felt like you read Terminator and then you're coming with questions without actually
Yeah.
reading like what our take is.
What
But
I-
maybe there's disconnect there. I'm not sure.
Mhm.
So I feel like that's what I'm trying to kind of reiterate, that is like
Mhm.
this should feel like a moody thriller,
Mhm.
and it has the title Terminator on it, which I think is more interesting than, I would buy. I remember when Batman came. No, actually, it's not a good example, but when a film would come out, then companies would make the comic book adaptation, and it
Mhm.
just was never as cool as the original film. Rarely
Right.
ever was, um, and you'd always be a bit like, disappointed.
Mhm.
So like, and then licensed stuff can look like, again, very generic sometimes if you're not careful. So I want to make something that feels as cool as the original Terminator film is, channel some of that aesthetic, but like it be
Mhm.
its own thing at the same time. Like I remember, I can't remember who wrote it, but and Goran Parlov, who did Punisher with Gareth Ennis.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
he did some Terminator comics. If
Mhm.
you go back and look at that stuff, it looks great because it looks like a thriller comic,
Mhm.
but there happens to be kind of an Arnie looking guy in there. And that's kind of the vibe I'm going for. I'm going for a thriller, mood, crime comic feel.
Mhm.
That also has like that, don't get me wrong, it's not that it doesn't have the sci-fi element, but again, it's the back channel of it, not the front.
Mhm. Well, and I think that's another thing too. Like, yeah, it's kind of like the difference to me. Like, Terminator has the same tonal shift across its franchise
Mhm.
as like the Alien franchise kind of had. It's like your first film is like high tension. It's just very like it actually has like a horror element to it. But then as you get like onto later films, they're more just like straight up action films or like
Yeah,
or
but like
sci-fi action. But like Terminator 1, I feel like that's like the perfect place.
yeah, no, I agree, because like with the alien stuff, your mileage may vary, but
Mhm,
got very from Prometheus, got very into the lore of it all, and like I
mhm,
don't care. I don't
yeah.
care. So similar as regards to Thundercats.
Mhm,
Lore is great, but not at the expense of story. And I'm more interested again story at the front and lore at the back.
mhm,
And I think that if you look at say what happened with like this new Romulus alien film, everyone's seems big on board because it's got so much of the vibes of the first
mhm.
film, which is
Right.
appealing to me. But I also do think you should be able to go and do tonal changes. So it's
Mhm,
a delicate balance
mhm,
between, again, giving the reader or viewer or whatever it is like what they want, like while also giving them what they need.
mhm.
Um, and sometimes those are two very competing things. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they synchronize together great, but it's a tough one to balance when it comes to something like iconic, not just known, iconic
Mhm.
franchises.
Yeah, man, I like I said, I tip my hat to you because you've already kind of proven more than a couple of times so far that you have a pretty good handle on being able to tackle those types of things. Because I will definitely say if well, for one, if no one has read your Thundercats, they should probably go do that. That is.
Everybody
I
else is.
yeah,
Everybody else is. So why not you?
yeah, get in there and do that. And I really liked your your
Oh,
alien
thanks,
book.
man.
So I think, like I said, I think like Terminator was not like at the forefront of my mind when I was like, if someone would have asked me, hey, what do you think Declan's going to do next? I'd be like, Terminator would not have been the first thing that came to my mind, but
Me
like it
neither.
makes sense. It makes sense. Like,
Yeah, I mean, look, Thundercats wouldn't have been the first thing I thought anybody would think of me for, but they did, the
mm.
fools. Um, but no, I mean that's it. You don't know what's going to come your way, Like
Mhm,
I think when we were talking before, I couldn't say what it was at the time, but
mhm,
Mystique was my big thing this year that I was working on,
mhm,
along with the Old Dog anthology. That was my plan for 2024. I'm
mhm,
like, I'm going to work on this big X-Men thing and my own project on the side. Great. And I think I was working on Alien at the time, and
mhm.
that I figured that would wrap up. Thundercats came along. I was like, cool, this will be fun for a year. And then that's turned into its own, like, we're talking its own universe now.
Yeah, you've got
But
spinoffs already now. Like it's a
yeah, I mean, you've no idea, but yeah.
oh man.
Um, But and so like something so like the last thing I was expecting was something like this, even though I feel like it is so up my alley creatively. But if you just threw out the, you know, I guess that's it. I do like sometimes get, the surprise of like, huh, that with that. I I wonder what that's going to be like. And I find those are the books I tend to be more interested in. I think I used the example of years ago when Trad Moore was put on Ghost Rider, and I was like,
Mm.
I don't know what that's going to look like. And when I saw it, it looks incredible. You know,
Hmm.
I like that. Some people don't like that. Some people like to know exactly what it is they're going to get, and
They want
nothing
to read the
else.
wiki, get all the way through to the end, know how it ends, and then
Yeah,
go
yeah. They
in.
want they want John Romita Jr. to draw everything, because he
Yeah,
has drawn everything, and because he has, they know what
yeah,
it's going to look like.
right.
New can be scary, and I get that.
Hmm.
But I personally like like I know what this is and I know what that is, but I don't know what it is together, and that's exciting to me. So
Hmm.
if that's the type of stuff I'm being put on, then I feel like or at least I hope I'm making the types of books that I would like to read personally. If I
Hmm.
wasn't the one doing this would be a thing of like, oh, okay, that's going to be, Now I know I'm not every reader. I'm a specific type of reader, but I'm fairly normy at the same time. So
Hmm.
I think I would hope that that's the type of stuff that like, you know, nobody knows Luke's stuff because he's new. But when
Hmm.
they see his pages, I mean, they're just on fire.
Hmm.
And I hope that like whatever recognizable name or covers um I can bring to the title that'll give it. I don't know. I'm talking to myself now, so sorry. I don't know what
You're good. You're
like
good.
Declan Shalvey on a book means to people, if anything at all. Um, but I would like it to be like, oh, cool, okay, that's going to be, interesting. I mean, not good. Doesn't mean it's going to be good. But I would hope it would be like, huh, okay, that I wonder what that's going to be like. That's the type of stuff I like to get myself. And as a creator, the best I can really hope for is that I'm producing the type of work that I would want to be reading.
Mhm. Well, I could definitely say the just based on some of the things I yeah kind of looked into, like obviously being very familiar with your work. I think Luke is, if I'm not mistaken, is I want to say has done was some of the Star Trek. Uh,
He did a short story in Star Trek 400, which I actually
mhm,
wrote a story in. I'd already seen his stuff before then, and I liked
mhm,
it, but I was very impressed with like how visually interesting his Star Trek story was, which like it's the original series.
mhm,
Sets and characters, they're not, I don't think they're as strongly visual to draw as other interpretations of Star Trek. And I remember thinking
right.
like, oh wow, he made them look like grounded and interesting, which I was very impressed by. Um, but he's drawn one of the stories for the Old Dog Operations anthology that's out in October. Um, Let me just plug that for a second.
No, please,
Um,
by all means.
yeah, well, if you don't mind, yeah, it's got Matthias Bergara and Leonardo Romero and Alex Paknadel and Charles Soule, and I'm coloring the Chris Sprouse story as we speak. Pretty much, so like it's great, but I also like wanted to give somebody newer a shot, and so
Mhm,
I asked Luke to draw a little story, and that story was so good. As we're putting Terminator together, I reached out to Nate and I said, I want that. This is the guy I want on this book because he drew in a way that like felt like I'd like to draw it. Like if
mhm,
I couldn't draw Old Dog, I'd ask Luke because I feel like there's something. It's not the same, don't get me wrong,
mhm,
but there's a kind of an overlap there which really suited my own sensibilities. And I remember thinking like this, it's grounded and it feels real, and like the environments really put me in the scene, and the characters are great. And in those 6 pages, I'm like, this guy would draw the shit out of sorry, well, you would actually draw the shit out of Punisher,
yeah, he
but
was.
Terminator. Um, and that was it. I basically just said to Nate, it has to be him. So, and I got him. So I'm so like, oh man, like his drawing, everything he draws just feels so real and developed, and I think he's gonna knock people's shoes off.
Well, I for one, I like I said earlier, and yeah, and with my audience already, they're already very familiar, with your work, and just kind of having had like I said, just my barest minimum experience with Luke, just being that Star Trek issue. I think there's a lot to be excited about. I think there's a lot to look forward to. This, correct me if I'm wrong. We're looking at like the first issue of Terminator. Is it going to be dropping? Like, was it in October?
Wednesday 9th, I think. October 9th is Terminator, and then the
Mm.
following week is Mystique, and
Okay.
the day after that is New York Comic Con. So I'm expecting New York to be pretty busy.
Oh wow. Yes. My God. Yeah, you're gonna
Yeah, so
be.
I might be slightly off about those dates, but it's basically
Yeah.
I think it's Terminator and Mystique are out a week away from each other,
Oh my
and the
God.
Old Dog Anthology is out 2 weeks before then. So my hope is people who are curious about Mystique, the
Mm.
spy book, Super Spy Book, will pick up my Super Spy Book at Image, and within that is the first collaboration between me and Luke. So
Mhm.
in a weird way, it's also kind of a preview for Terminator. I didn't plan it that way.
It
It's
just kind
just
of worked
happened to
out.
work out. So allow me to make the most of that timing and go, if you're interested in Terminator or you're interested in Mystique, you should pick up the Old Dog Anthology. It's like 64 pages of like cool action storytelling by amazing writers and artists, and also me. Um, so it's weird to have that many different things coming out at the same time, pretty much.
Mm.
But it's interesting. It's all stuff, like I said, any of those projects are dream projects, so it's cool to be doing all this stuff.
Well, I'm gonna have links in the description. There'll be a pinned comment below. There'll be links for the Terminator issue #1 page on Dynamite. There'll also be, I'll have links down below, so that y'all can go take a look at that, as well as taking a look at all the other stuff that's going to be upcoming. Mystique, the Old Dog Anthology. I'll also have some links to Time
And
Before Time.
the Moon Knight thing is going to be out. Yeah,
Oh,
sorry, Time
yeah.
Before Time.
When is Moon Knight? When is
Son of a bitch. So I can't even remember all this stuff.
I almost forgot.
Yeah, sorry. Phases of the Moon Knight issue 2 is my story. So it's me and Eder Messias.
Mhm.
It was sold to me as a short story. I'm like, great, but it's 15 pages. So it's basically one shot.
Yeah,
Um,
basically.
so Jed McKay and Jorge Fornes are doing the other. They have a story and we have a story. Ours is basically about the last Moon Knight. So it's set in the distant future
Mhm.
with a new incarnation that I designed. So again, that's fun. I got to design the character and write it, and Eder's done amazing stuff. So that's out in, God damn it, I think it's out in October as well.
Oh my God! So October is, so. Is it safe to say that that October
October's the
is
day
your
I die.
month? No, I hope not. But I mean, but I feel like October is going to be your month. Pretty
You're right.
much.
I'm gonna start calling it Decktober.
There you go.
Uh,
That's it. It's official. It's official.
Yeah, sorry, I have it written down here. I probably will do it. I'm gonna start calling it October. Let me see. Yeah, September 18th is Old Dog Operations and Thundercats issue 8. September 25th is
Okay.
Phases of Moon Knight issue 2 and
Mm.
Time Before Time volume 6.
Okay.
And that is, I mean, again, if you like time travel stuff like Terminator, actually Time Before Time actually has a murder robot in it as well. Now that I think about it, a funny one.
I feel like Nick probably saw that and was like, "This is my guy."
Yeah, might have been.
Yeah.
But that volume is actually all of the self-contained one-shots that we did over the series. So in a way, actually, you don't need to have read any Time Before Time because they're all kind of open, accessible stories. I drew one of them as well. And then let me see, October 9th is Terminator 1, and then October 16th is Mystique issue 1
man.
and Thundercats 9.
Jesus.
Oy.
Yeah, Decktober. It's a that's your
official.
month. Yeah, it's I'm calling it. It's official.
Well,
We
no,
don't
sorry,
call it anything else.
half of those are September, so Decktember and Decktober.
There you go. Basically, it's going to let you know that Declan's been very busy all year.
Yeah.
All year.
Yeah, if it seems like I wasn't doing anything before, then boy, are you in for a surprise. And then by the end of the year, I'll be dead, and I'll have all these nice comics to show for it.
Well, I look forward to a lot of a lot more Terminator, a lot. I can't. I'm yeah. Obviously, I'm an X-Men nut, so obviously I'm looking forward to your Mystique. I'm a huge fan of Moon Knight, so the fact, like, short story or not, I'm in. So
but yeah, and like, so like all those things are different. Like Mystique is a specific like miniseries, and Thundercats is an ongoing sprawling story, which is great. Whereas Terminator is more very definite, like it's a year-long book. Like assume like I don't know what the sales will be like, but I know we at least have a year to do some really cool stories. So and I was too busy to take it on really, but like I said, I felt like I could do I felt like I could do a really really cool book with the right artist, and I just can't wait for it to it's coming together right now. We're in the stages where like it's just about to be born, and like I just I can't wait for it to come out.
I wouldn't be doing my due diligence, and I know my audience would literally crucify me if I don't do this. At least this one last thing, because I know they're gonna ask, and they're gonna say, Ernie, why didn't you ask about the book? Why didn't you ask about this? Well, I'm gonna ask if there's any one little small thing you can tell us, not obviously not a spoiler or anything, but like, what can people who are looking forward to your Mystique book, what can they expect?
So I'm gonna have to get out of my Terminator brain into my Mystique brain.
Those are very different mindsets.
yeah, I can shapeshift into it, if you will. What can they expect? Well, look, if you like Old Dog, which most people won't know, so maybe that's not the best example, but it's in that vein. It's kind of pretty much done in one action set pieces. It's because I think I met Brian K. Vaughan after I took the book on, and he asked what I was working on, and I said I was ripping him off. Because that was the problem, is how do you do, because it was specifically pitched to me as a spy book. So how do you do a Mystique spy book after Brian K. Vaughan and all those guys, so it's different. I would say it's because it's a writer artist doing it. I leaned into advice a friend of mine gave me, which is you can draw whoever you want. Because when you're doing X-Men stuff, it's really tough. It's like, can I use I don't know, Nightcrawler? It's like, well, he's got one arm and is in X-Force right now, so because these are sprawling worlds, it can be really hard to use people. But the thing about Mystique is she can turn into anyone she wants, so I can draw. So Sabretooth, you could say I got to draw Sabretooth in the first issue because she turns into Sabretooth. No spoilers there. It's like in the second page. But I got to draw old school Sabretooth because I can. So I think I think there are cheap cameos that, like I said, with you can't give the reader what they want necessarily.
Right.
I'm 100% doing that in this book because that's what I want to do. I want to draw all the cool stuff. But I mean, that's from a fun point of view. But ultimately, I think it's a very character-based arc about, essentially, with all the mutants, with Krakoa gone, you all of a sudden have the most dangerous. Whatever about other characters, I think she's the most dangerous mutant, not just because of her powers, but because of her character. And she's off doing whatever she wants. So Nick Fury decides, we can't let this go. We need to find out. We need to track her down, for one, and that very much blows up in his face. So it's a kind of a cat and mouse story about Nick Fury trying to catch Mystique and us wondering what the hell she's really up to.
Oh, hey, I'm in. Yeah, I was already in, but
Cool.
Now I'm extra in now.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but I did a Nick Fury serial as part of Civil War II.
Yes,
choosing sides. So I did like a Nick Fury story that went through all that, where I designed this kind of super suit for him. So it's actually really cool. I mean, the task was to do Mystique book, but editorial suggested using Nick. And I'm like, that's a cool way to use something I did before and feed it into what I'm doing now, which is really cool. I never would have thought that's where my career would be, but I'm getting to reference my own stories, which is pretty cool.
I think that says you've arrived. Whatever status you thought you were at before, you're a fair sight higher.
Yeah, I think it finally sunk in when I did when I was in San Diego at Comic-Con a couple of weeks ago, and we had this big X-Men signing at the Marvel booth, you know, and it has like on a massive screen, like, you know, trailers and like your name on there. And then we did the signing, and then we did the X-Men panel afterwards, which was jam-packed. Like I had to kind of take a step back and go like, oh, you're actually a thing now.
Yeah.
You know, you spend a good 10 years just trying to like pretend that you're not faking it. But then you're like, well, I am faking it, but I'm also actually doing it.
Yeah.
I've kind of been doing it for a while. Maybe I should kind of like accept it now.
You accept it. You have arrived. You have arrived.
Yeah. And do you know who I am?
It's like you know,
I don't.
I think I know who you are. You're that guy I've seen in that one thing somewhere that one time. No,
it's fine. I'm fine with that. That's exactly who I am.
But thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, and like I said, like I said, everything will be down below. Y'all go check it out, and it'll be great. I promise you, it'll be great.
Okay, you hold. They can hold you to that, not me. I'm not making any promises.
I'll take full blame. I'll take full blame.
Okay.